Okay, so with the Ultra update, the Saint of the Ultra update rather, we actually got a lot of buffs to bows. Specifically, every bow except for the Lenz. Now, we've already talked about the Daiku in great detail, so I'm not going to be talking about that. Instead, I just want to go through all of the other changes, and in particular, demonstrate the changes for Dread, Cernos Prime, and Paris Prime, simply because I actually have those bows, and I've actually, upgraded them to a point where it's actually worth having a look at how well they fare against level 100 Corrupted Heavy Gunners. The other bows, I just haven't done anything to them, including the Mutilus Cernos. So, without further ado, I'm just going to quickly list the changes for the other bows, and then we'll jump into the Dread, then the Cernos Prime, then the Paris Prime, as well as the Mark 1 Paris in that little section at the end. Okay, so, real quick, Cernos Prime Quick Shot and Charge Shot has basically been increased in damage by around about 70%, so that's really good, that's a big buff. Flight speed increased from 85 to 90, aim zoom decreased from 2.23 to 2, doesn't really matter. For the Mutilus Cernos, Quick Shot increased from for what appears to be like almost 70% as well, if not, like, we're nearly doubling the amount of damage as before, so that's really good. Same as the Charge Shot, about 70% probably, and aim zoom decreased from 2.23 to 2 times. Cernos Prime we'll talk about later. Raptor Cernos, Quick Shot increased from 150 to 235. That's, let's see, 85 divided by 150. That's a 50%. That's a little bit over 50% increased damage, and Charge Shot has probably followed. Actually, Charge Shot has followed suit. So, that's pretty good. That's actually, hang on. 120 divided by 250. Okay, Charge Shot has actually been increased by 48%. So, that's pretty good. If you're using the Raptor Cernos, and I know a lot of people using the Raptor Cernos, you're going to have a really good time because basically your damage has been increased by about 50%. So that's really good. Daiku we've already covered, Dread we'll cover later. Paris Regular, not Paris Prime nor Mark 1 Paris, Paris Regular. Quick Shot has been increased by about 30%. Actually 33% specifically, and Charge Shot has been increased by an even larger amount though. What is that? 140, that's 77%. So the Quick Shot damage has only been increased by a little bit, but the Charge Shot damage has been increased by a massive amount in terms of comparing to the original damage. And then finally we have the Mark 1 Paris and the Paris Prime damage, which we'll look at in a second. Alrighty, enough of that talk, let's get into the Dread. Alright, so in each test we'll do just a simple against Porous AI test, and then we'll also do a test in a magnetized bubble. Great, awesome. So we have 8 level 100 Corrupted Heavy Gunners, and the basic bitch build that I'm doing for the Dread, because of the 3 bows that I've built, the Dread is probably my least favorite. Sorry, I just don't really care about it all that much. I've made this build here. It's actually quite good, I think. Because the Dread is a slash-based bow, hint, because the Dread is a slash-based bow, we've gone for Elected Force round, so we get that 66.8% status chance. It's alright, it's still a bit of a coin flip to try and get that slash proc, but I do find that when I do proc slash a lot more than usual. So, I have no problems with that. Highly unlikely we're going to get an impact puncture proc. That's really good. And otherwise I'm using Vital Acceleration, although I guess we could use literally any other mod. Maybe even something like Infected Clip, that could be pretty dope. I don't know. If I were to put another former in it, then I guess I could start looking into using the Prime Cryo rounds. Oh, I probably can't fit that. I don't know. But, bottom line is, this build seems pretty good for all intents and purposes. If I were to get a Riven, which I don't have a Riven, actually I don't think I want a Riven because the Riven disposition for the Dread, oh no, the Riven disposition for the Dread is pretty good. So maybe I would get a Riven, but I think Dread Rivens probably have a big price because Dread is a lot more popular than say Paris Prime. Anyway, if I do get that headshot on a level 100 Corrupted Heavy Gunner, as you can see, that was a red crit headshot, so that's a lot of damage, like a lot of damage. So we're obviously doing quite good. I don't think this one was a headshot, so we're not going to be able to kill it just that easily, but the damage alone seems pretty good for a Dread that doesn't have a Riven, especially if I get that headshot. The changes for the Dread, quite simply, are Quick Shot damage increased by a tiny little bit, whilst Charge Shot damage has been increased by 136. That's, I should be able to do this math but I don't want to do it. That's about a 70% damage increase, ladies and gentlemen. Right? 68% damage increase, precisely. So, essentially, your charge shots are doing 68% more damage. That's pretty good. That's really, really good. Alright, so... in the way of a magnetized bubble. Just a magnetized bubble. There's also been a change to bows where a lot of the visual effects and I guess even the sound effect have changed for the bows. With the Dread, it seems to have more of a long line that persists for a while. And I'm noticing that, like, in terms of the sound, it sounds like the bow constantly has Thunderbolt, which might be a little bit confusing. Probably didn't need to jump there. There we go. Awesome. So that is the Dread in action. If you have a better build, feel free to leave it in the comments. But again, I'm not putting that much effort into the Dread. That's just me. Anyway, let's move on now to the shotgun bow. That is the Cernos Prime. Alright, here is the Cernos Prime build that I am using. We basically have a Riven that does extra crit damage, extra crit chance, and also has some extra projectile flight speed, so that's really, really good. Gives us 7.1 times crit multiplier, which is a lot of fun. We also have Hunter Munitions, which is just really, really good, especially on this bow, because the amount of arrows that you fire gives you so much opportunity to get Hunter Munitions out that you only need like two or three of those arrows to do slash procs, and you're insta-gibbing like every enemy in the game. That's really, really good. Alright. Otherwise, standard crit build, let's just get into it. The changes for the Cernos Prime are very simply 50% extra damage on both quick shot and charge shot. We have extra projectile flight speed, but nobody cares. And we also have a tightening of the arrow spread on vertical mode. Now, what does that mean? Previously, this spread on horizontal arrows used to also apply on vertical arrows. This is no longer the case. Vertical arrows have this kind of spread. They're literally right on top of each other, which makes Cernos Prime a real shotgun bow and really, really powerful up close and personal with enemies, especially if you can get all of the arrows onto their head, which is a lot easier now because the arrows are no longer spread as far. Even if we were to stand this far away, that's all headshots, I think. And then we also have like Hunter Munitions, which does a lot of damage. Almost all of those are headshots. Maybe one of them is not a headshot. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not paying that close attention to it. Point is, you also have to aim for the top of their head if you want to get them all to hit the head. As opposed to aiming in the middle now. Personally, I still find that aiming in the middle is a little bit better for the middle arrow because that just seems more intuitive to me now, I guess because I'm used to it. But I can understand why a lot of people would not like that because aiming for the head usually is like the meta idea when using a bow, when using a sniper rifle, when using basically anything. You always want to aim for the head, but with the Cernos Prime it used to be aim for the body so that all of your arrows would hit the body, but the top one would hit the head. So I understand where they're coming from that, but I'm still a little bit miffed. In the way of good old-fashioned magnetized bubble, blow it up. So we're still able to do quite a lot of damage against these level 100 corrupted heavy gunners. Even body shots are able to do quite a decent amount of damage, so yeah, this is pretty cool. Alright, let's move on now to the Paris Prime as well as the Mark 1 Paris and see how well these bows are now faring against our level 100 corrupted heavy gunners. Alright, finally, the Paris Prime. Now, anyone who's paid any attention to this channel already knows about the big deep Paris Retarder river that I already have. Basically, extra crit chance, extra damage. Great! Awesome! Let's get into it. Now, the changes to the Paris Prime are that the damage has been increased by roughly 50%. 50%? 50%. Well, a little bit under 50%, about 40%. So, if we were to have a look at going up against these corrupted heavy gunners. Now keep in mind I'm not using Hunter Munitions. So I'm just relying purely on brute forcing the living crap out of them, although if I do get a random slash proc, that's real lucky. But the Paris Prime is not a slash-based bow, so I'm not doing that. We're basically 3-shotting these enemies. 2-shotting if we manage to get a viral proc. 2-shotting if we manage to get like double red crits through Cryotra and also through the bow itself, because the bow is super duper good. But yeah, otherwise that seems to be the idea. I have heard a pretty decent argument that I shouldn't be using Prime Shred on my Paris Prime when I'm using it with the magnetized bubble. Yeah, the person who made that argument, they might actually be onto something. I'm not 100% sure anymore. I'm actually starting to doubt whether or not Prime Shred actually does anything. But at the same time, I think it's alright. Alternatively, of course, would be to just use Hunter Munitions. Just default to Hunter Munitions. It's always really, really good. So how good is Hunter Munitions on the Paris Prime now that the damage has basically been increased by about 40%? Well, as you might imagine, it's really, really good, but that's really more of a factor of it being Hunter Munitions. You get that headshot, it's instant kill. Sorry, you get that slash block, it's instant kill. You get that slash block 30% of the time, but 30% of the time feels a lot more like 50% of the time, so, you know. Oh, dead. Yeah, so as you can see, Hunter Munitions is a lot stronger at killing things than Prime Shred, but at the same time, I feel like Prime Shred is actually doing something. Because the alternative to Prime Shred in terms of having extra fire rate would be Gunslinger. Gunslinger? Speed Trigger. But, I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. What other mod do you think I should use? I have considered using Heavy Caliber. I have actually considered that. Not the worst idea ever, actually. But keep in mind, it does play around with that accuracy quite a lot, so sometimes your arrows do fly and spread even harder than friggin' Cernos Prime, which is pretty hilarious. Wait, what am I shooting? Just real quick, that's the spread. Also, oh my god, the visual effects that are new on the Paris Prime arrows, I find those to be really misleading, because that sort of circle thing, what that says to me immediately from I think a lot of other video games is that if you hit someone with an arrow like that and it does like a little circle thing, what that indicates to me is that if I were to shoot that area again, the enemy would take extra damage. Like it's almost as if like shoot an arrow somewhere and that gives them a temporary weak spot, and then shoot it again. Shoot your Paris Prime again. But no, it's just visual. So I don't know. I don't particularly like the visual change. At least on the first day I used it, but afterwards I guess I'll get used to it. Maybe I'll stick to Heavy Caliber actually. I don't know. Might be something worth investigating. Now, how are we doing for time? Okay, real quick. The Mark 1 Paris. Now, the Mark 1 Paris did get quite a nice change. Basically, the damage basically went up by 15% on the quick charge, so the quick shot, so that's basically meaningless. But the charge shot damage actually increased by around about 95%, but almost doubled. It almost doubled, so it essentially now takes half as many arrows to kill these corrupted heavy gunners as it did before, which makes this real good. We're basically 4-shotting these guys. Or 3-shotting, depending on how lucky you get. Or potentially 2-shotting, depending on how lucky you get. Bottom line is, this is a Mark 1 Paris. It's a Mark 1 Paris with a somewhat wonky build. For starters, I'm using corrosive damage, which I never use on a bow. Stormbringer, heavy infected clip. That's not even a full infected clip, ladies and gentlemen. So that's how wonky this build is. I'm also using fast hands of all things because I haven't bothered to put enough former into this build to actually do a proper build. But I don't really need to, I guess. Yeah, like this is as wonky of a build as you can get, but it still kills. It still does a lot of damage. Still does a lot of damage. And it still has more crit chance than the Die Q. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Anyway, yeah, the Mark 1 Paris is pretty good. It's pretty good. So those are the changes to the Saint of the Ultra patch, like just buffing all the bows except for the Lenz. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Personally, I will still use the Paris Prime because it is, in my opinion, the best bow in the game that I have. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Warframe content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye!